The syrup was still warm. The plate sat untouched, fork resting neatly where he'd left it. Half a smile smeared in strawberry jam on the edge of the toast. He always took one bite before kissing Lily on the forehead and heading out the door. Except that morning he didn't. I didn't think much of it at first. Just assumed he was running late. Rushed out, forgot to grab his keys again. Except the keys were still hanging by the door. Wallet too. I checked my phone. No texts. No missed calls. Just a notification from his calendar app. Client-side visit 9:30 a.m. routine. Ordinary. So why did the silence feel so loud? I called once. Voicemail. Called again. Still nothing. By noon, the panic was no longer a whisper. It was screaming. In every corner of the house. In Lily's voice asking, "Why hasn't Daddy called me today?" By 2 o'clock p.m., I was pacing. By 2:30, I was in the car, driving to his office, heart pounding so hard I thought the steering wheel might shake loose. His coworker met me at the door. His face said it before his mouth did. He collapsed. In the hallway. They took him straight to the hospital. I don't remember the drive. I don't remember the parking lot. I only remember the hallway. The one that smelled like disinfectant and grief. The nurse who didn't meet my eyes. The doctor who cleared his throat too many times. And the sentence that ripped something clean from my chest. "We did everything we could. I'm so sorry." It was a heart attack. Massive. Instant. Like a light bulb. Like a door slamming shut that you didn't know was ever open. I didn't scream. Not then. I think the silence was louder. I sat in the chair beside his bed, cold hand in mine, skin already unfamiliar. His wedding ring felt heavier than usual, like it knew. Lily asked me that night if he was coming home. I couldn't speak. She crawled into bed beside me, hugged his pillow, and whispered, "I think heaven is very full now. I think grief doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps, starts in the socks you can't wash." The charger still plugged in. The jacket still hanging by the door he never opened again. The next morning, I called my mom. She answered on speakerphone, music in the background, laughter, clinking glasses. "Mom, Kevin passed. Yesterday." It was sudden. Silence. Then, "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. But it's Sophia's birthday today, remember? Can we talk tomorrow instead?" I didn't reply. The call dropped. Maybe I hung up. Maybe the signal gave up for me. I stared at the phone like it was a foreign object. Her first reaction wasn't to ask how I was, or how Lily was. It was to reschedule my grief. I sat in the bathroom after, in the dark, cold tiles under my knees. And for the first time, I cried so hard I thought my lungs might shatter. I called Celeste, my sister, next. Just a text. "Kevin's gone. Please call when you can." She replied 3 hours later. What? That's horrible. I just got to dinner with Alex's parents. Can I call you tomorrow? Tomorrow. Everyone had time for me tomorrow. But Kevin had no more tomorrows. I began planning the funeral in silence. James, Kevin's brother, helped me with the logistics. My parents sent a message saying they'd try to make it work. Celeste liked the funeral announcement on Facebook but didn't RSVP. I didn't chase them. I had nothing left to offer except honesty. I stood in our kitchen one morning before the service and stared at the photo on the fridge. The three of us at the beach, Lily on his shoulders, my arms around his waist, all teeth and sun and light. I whispered to that photo, "They won't come for you, but I will stand here for both of us." And then I set the table again. Same spot, same toast, same syrup, his plate untouched. But this time, not because he forgot, because they did. He left without warning, and so did they. But grief has no pause button, and love doesn't disappear just because they do. The invitations went out, digitally, paperless, because paper felt too heavy. And also, who was I sending them to? Everyone already knew. They just didn't want to know too loudly. The funeral was set for Saturday morning, 10 o'clock a.m. At the chapel Kevin walked by every day on his way to work. He always said, "It looks like the kind of place that would hold people together. Instead, it would be the place that held us while we fell apart." I sent the invite to my family anyway. Mom, Dad, Celeste, with trembling fingers and a heart still cracked down the middle from how little they said when he died. Mom replied 4 hours later, "That's Sophia's recital day, honey. We'll see what we can do. Not we'll be there. Not tell me what you need. Just a negotiation between my husband's death and her granddaughter's jazz shoes." I didn't respond. Celeste texted, "I'll try to make it, but Alex and I have a dinner reservation that night. How long do you think it'll be?" I stared at her words like they were in another language. How long? Like grief comes with a timer. Like sorrow respects restaurant reservations. I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because grief had already taken my voice once, and I wasn't ready to lose it again to people who treated it like an inconvenience. The night before the funeral, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote Kevin a letter. I placed it in his jacket pocket. The navy one. He wore it to our engagement dinner. He always said it made him feel like a grown man. The letter wasn't poetic, just honest. I told him I missed the way he made tea, the way he remembered everyone's coffee order, how he never let Lily go to bed without a new question to dream about. And I told him I was angry, not at him, not at God, but at the ones who were alive and still couldn't show up. I folded the letter, pressed it to my lips, and slipped it into the lining. Then I stood in the hallway, watching the reflection of myself in the mirror by the front door. Black dress, shaking hands, a silence in my eyes that didn't look like me anymore. Lily came up behind me, hugged my waist. Do I look like Daddy would have wanted? She wore the blue dress, the one he called her sky dress. Her hair was in a braid, crooked. I did my best. I nodded, but my voice cracked when I whispered, "He'd say you were the reason the sky feels jealous." The next morning, the chapel filled slowly. Kevin's co-workers came, his gym buddies, even his barber. Neighbors we hadn't spoken to in months showed up with folded hands and full hearts. But not my family. Not until 10:13. They walked in like they were late to a brunch. Celeste wore red lipstick. Mom wore sunglasses indoors. Dad didn't say a word, just nodded like it was a business meeting. They sat in the back row, didn't make eye contact. I gave the eulogy anyway. Read every word even though my voice cracked like glass underfoot. Lily sat in the front row holding her stuffed fox. She didn't cry. She just clutched it the way she used to clutch Kevin's hand during thunderstorms. Afterwards, at the reception, Celeste took a selfie near the memorial table. I heard Dad talking to someone behind me. She should really be more practical. Life insurance that size? She'll be fine. Grief doesn't last forever. I didn't turn around. I just walked to the kitchen, held onto the counter and breathed. Not because I was breaking, but because I was building a dam against the flood I knew would come if I opened my mouth. That night, I put Lily to bed, tucked her in tight, kissed her forehead. As I turned to leave, she whispered, "Mom, why didn't Grandma cry?" I sat back down, held her tiny hand, and said the only thing that felt true. Some people don't cry when they lose someone, because they never really knew how to love them. She nodded, then turned to the wall, and I realized she'd already begun learning what I fought years to unlearn, that blood doesn't always mean family, and presence is louder than genetics. They showed up late and left early, but grief doesn't care who signs the guest list. It only cares who held your hand when the world stopped turning. Lily wore blue to the funeral, not because it was polite, but because she wanted to. Because Kevin always said it brought out the light in her eyes. Because he used to spin her around in the hallway and say, "Look at my little piece of sky." She stood beside the casket that morning with her tiny hands folded in front of her. No tears, no fuss, just stillness. The kind of stillness only children who've seen too much too soon can understand. My mother pulled me aside at the reception. Lipstick perfect, eyes dry, smile tight. "Darling, I know it's hard, but maybe don't let her wear such bright colors next time. People are watching. Next time." As if this would be a repeatable offense. As if grief had a wardrobe guide and we'd failed page 1. I stared at her, not angry, not even surprised anymore. Just done. She wore what he loved, not what you approve of, and I walked away. Lily clung to my leg that night, her blue dress crumpled, still stained with a drop of grape juice. We hadn't even made it home before my sister texted, "Sel, hey, I know it's probably a bad time, but when you get a chance, can you send over the name of Kevin's life insurance provider? Mom said she thinks you might need help managing it." No condolence, no check-in, just a veiled ask dressed as financial concern. I put the phone down, face down, screen dark, the only darkness I could control in that moment. Kevin's old voicemail still played when I called his number. I let it ring just to hear his voice, just to remember what it sounded like when someone asked how I was and actually wanted the answer. The next morning, Lily sat across from me, eating dry cereal and humming something out of tune. "Mommy," she asked softly, "do you think Daddy saw my dress?" I nodded. He wouldn't have missed it for the world that day. We got the funeral photos back. The ones I never asked for but the director took anyway just in case. I clicked through them alone. Slide after slide of half faces, folded hands, bowed heads. Then one of Lily, standing beside the casket, looking up at the ceiling as if she was listening for something no one else could hear. I stared at it for a long time, because there, in that photo, she wasn't broken. She wasn't undone. She was the only person in that room who looked like she actually understood what was happening. Celeste wore sunglasses in every photo, smiling in some, checking her phone in two. In the corner of one shot, my father is holding a paper plate with 3 slices of cake. Red velvet. Kevin's least favorite. I closed the laptop, slowly, deliberately. Then I got up and gathered every condolence card that arrived with cheap flowers and recycled sentiments. I placed them in a box, labeled it performances, sealed it shut. That night, as Lily slept, I sat on the edge of her bed and watched her breathe. Her blue dress was hanging on the closet door, wrinkled but radiant like it still remembered the way he spun her around. I reached into my nightstand and pulled out the letter I wrote to Kevin the night before the funeral. I added a line at the bottom. "She wore blue, just like you would have wanted." They didn't see it, but I did. She glowed. In the days that followed, people asked how I was doing. I said, "Managing." Because managing sounds a lot better than I am unraveling in slow motion and stitching myself back together with threads made of memory. Mom called again. Voicemail this time. "You're being distant. Your father's concerned. We think it's time we talked about the practical things. The practical things." As if the love of my life was just a logistical inconvenience. Celeste texted again. "Any word on the policy?" Not to pry, just thinking about the future. I typed out a reply, then deleted it, then typed again. "The future is none of your business." I didn't hit send. Not yet, but soon. Because I was learning now that grief doesn't just take people from you. It shows you who was never really there. She wore blue because he loved her in it. They wore masks because they didn't know how to love at all. Grief doesn't knock anymore. It just lets itself in. Quiet, sour in the back of your throat, lingering behind phone calls that start with, "We were just thinking about you." It had been 2 weeks since the funeral. 2 weeks since the last slice of store-bought cake sat limp on a paper plate in the hands of a man who called himself supportive. The doorbell rang on a Thursday. Early. Too early. Lily was still asleep, her stuffed fox tucked under one arm. I opened the door in sweatpants and silence. It was my parents. And Celeste. All smiles and a box of muffins, as if carbs could erase what they hadn't shown up for. "We thought we'd come by," Mom said. No warning. No text. Just "we thought." I stepped aside. Not because they earned it. Because I was tired of standing in doorways trying to hold boundaries with my bare hands. They sat in the living room like they owned the air. Mom adjusted a pillow. Dad cleared his throat. Celeste crossed her legs like she had something rehearsed. And she did. "We wanted to check in, see how things are, and talk about what comes next." I blinked. "Next? Well," she said, pulling out a small notebook. "We know Kevin had a policy. You mentioned it once, remember? And the house, it's big for just you and Lily. We thought maybe I held up my hand. Just one. That's all it took to make her stop." "You came here to ask for money," Mom gasped, hand to her chest like I'd cursed in church. Dad didn't deny it. He just shifted in his seat. "We're family," Mom said. "We thought maybe it would be good to share a little," Celeste added. "Just something modest. You wouldn't even feel it. We helped raise you, remember? Helped raise me. Like I was a debt. Like love was a transaction and now they were here to collect interest." I stood up, slowly. "Kevin didn't owe you anything. Neither do I. And Lily certainly doesn't." Silence. The kind that tastes metallic. "You weren't there when he took his last breath. You weren't there when I sat in the hallway waiting for a doctor to tell me it was over. You weren't there when I held Lily through her first night without him. But now that there's a check, you're here." Celeste looked offended, as if I'd robbed her. "We just thought, you know, a little support might help us all." "Support," I said, "comes before the money." I walked to the kitchen, grabbed the muffins they brought, opened the trash can and dropped them in. "This is not a bakery." This is a home where grief lives. And we don't serve pastries to people who only show up when they smell profit. Mom started crying. Or pretending to. Hard to tell anymore. Dad stood up. Cold. Controlled. You're making a mistake. I nodded. I did. When I opened the door, they left without another word. But Celeste lingered. Right at the doorway. You're going to regret pushing us away. I looked her dead in the eyes. You never stood close enough for me to push you. I closed the door, locked it, twice, and leaned against it until I could breathe again. That night, I wrote Kevin another letter, slipped it into the same pocket in his jacket where the first one lived. They came for the money, not for me, not for her, just a payout. But don't worry, I didn't give them a single cent of your love. Lily drew a picture the next morning. Us three. But this time, she crossed out a few extra stick figures in the corner and wrote, "Just us." That's better. I hung it on the fridge, right above the life insurance paperwork. They called it support. I call it collection. But love, real love, doesn't come with invoices. And neither does grief. Love should never come with a price tag. But that didn't stop them from trying. 3 days after the muffin ambush, a letter arrived. Typed, sealed, too official looking to be anything but manipulation. I opened it at the kitchen table while Lily colored beside me. It was from Celeste. A financial proposal. We understand you're grieving. It began, but we believe it as fair to explore a modest division of Kevin's insurance payout. As a gesture of family unity. It read like a contract. It felt like theft. Dressed in Times New Roman. She included a spreadsheet with columns, percentages, notes like helped raise Rowan attended wedding, bought dress emotional support multiple occasions, and next to each line, a monetary value. They were billing me for being my family. I sat in silence, the kind of silence that comes after something inside you finally goes still. Not from shock, not from pain, from clarity. Lily tugged my sleeve. Is that from them? I nodded. She watched my face, then stood, walked to her art drawer, and pulled out a sheet of construction paper. I'm making one too. I let her. Didn't ask questions. Just watched as her tiny hand scribbled with a pink marker and her tongue poked from the corner of her mouth in concentration. 10 minutes later, she handed it to me. An invoice, just like theirs, except hers was written in crayon. Lily's bill holding me when I cried, 0 kissing my forehead every night, 0 making me pancakes with chocolate chips, 0 letting me keep daddy's pillows, 0 loving me every single day, 0 total. 0. I stared at the page, and then I broke. Not loudly, not with sobs, just tears rolling down my face as she climbed into my lap and whispered, "They don't know what love is." And she was right. The next day, we were invited to a family dinner. Mom said it was for healing. I knew better, but I went, because closure doesn't always come from silence. Sometimes it needs to be delivered like a verdict. We walked into their house. Everything spotless. Table set. Faces too eager to be real. Celeste had a folder. Again. More printouts. More numbers. More fake smiles. "We're just trying to be reasonable," she said. I didn't speak. I opened my purse. Pulled out Lily's invoice. The one in crayon. Creased and perfect. And slid it across the table. They looked confused. "What's this?" Mom asked. I folded my hands. An itemized bill from someone who actually knows what love costs. Celeste read it, her eyes darting, her jaw tightening. "This is childish." I smiled. "And yet somehow, more honest than anything you've given me." Mom started to protest. "We were there for you, no," I said, voice steady. "You were there when it was convenient. You showed up when it made you look generous. But when he died, you missed it. Because cake and candles mattered more than a goodbye." I stood. So did Lily. She took my hand. "We're not here to divide a life. We're here to protect what's left of it." I placed their proposal on the table, tore it in half, left it with their untouched wine glasses and half-baked sympathy. We walked out. Didn't look back. The next morning, I changed my will, updated my beneficiary list, blocked Celeste's number, and placed Lily's crayon invoice in the safe next to Kevin's wedding ring. Not because I needed the reminder, because someday, Lily might. They sent a bill for being my family, but my daughter sent a reminder of what love actually costs. Nothing if it's real. Grief doesn't just take the people you love. It peels off the masks of the people who claim they did too. After that dinner, I blocked them all. Celeste, my parents, even the aunties who liked their performative posts but never sent a single message after Kevin died. Blocked numbers, open wounds, and for the first time in months, the silence felt like peace, not punishment. But peace doesn't always last, especially when people think they're entitled to your pain. It started with school. Lily's teacher pulled me aside after class. Your mother came by. She said she had permission to pick Lily up. My blood ran cold. I shook my head. Firm. Absolutely not. She doesn't even have access. But they tried anyway. Twice. Once at school. Once at Lily's dance class. Each time, they left with a fake smile and an excuse. Just wanted to surprise her. I filed a no-contact order. Not out of anger, out of necessity. They weren't coming for Lily. They were coming for control. And they thought the quiet grief had left me defenseless. But grief had taught me how to build walls with glass windows so I could see them coming without ever letting them in. My lawyer made it official. No visitation. No financial claim. No access to Lily's school or medical records. Celeste posted online. Cryptic quotes. Half-truths. Some people forget who held them first. Money changes people. Grief turns hearts cold. She tagged no one, but everyone knew. My inbox filled. Some with support, some with shame. Don't punish your parents. They're all you've got. But that wasn't true. I had Lily, and I had Kevin's brother, Marcus. Marcus started showing up. Quietly. Consistently. Brought books for Lily. Fixed the leaky faucet. Never asked for anything. One night, I found him sitting on the porch with Lily on his lap, reading her the same story Kevin used to. She was smiling. His voice didn't match Kevin's, but his heart did. He looked at me and said, "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." And for the first time in a long time, I believed someone when they said that. I told Lily that night that some people who love you leave, but others show up and stay. She asked if Marcus could walk her into school next week. I nodded, and just like that, the scar where her grief had lived wasn't gone, but it had someone sitting beside it. I blocked their numbers, but I opened the door to people who never made me question if I was worth showing up for. Grief anniversaries are strange. 1 year since everything broke. 1 year since the last cup of coffee on our porch went cold. I didn't want to do anything, but Lily asked, "Can we do something nice for Daddy this time? Not sad, just him." So we did. A memorial. No black clothes. No speeches. No drama. Just people who loved him for real. Marcus helped. Set up a projector in the backyard. We played home videos. Kevin doing bad impressions. Kevin dancing with Lily in socks. Kevin snorting when he laughed too hard. Lily read a poem she wrote. Short. Off rhythm. Perfect. Friends from his old office came. His barber cried. Our neighbors brought a lemon pie he always raved about. No one asked for money. No one asked for anything. Just a chair and a moment to remember someone who gave more than he ever took. I stood in the kitchen watching it unfold through the window, and for a moment I wished he could see it. But then I realized he'd built it. Not the night. The people. The kind of man who left enough light to gather others in the dark. The next morning, a letter arrived. No return address, but the handwriting was my mother's. I opened it slowly. Inside, not an apology, but not a demand either. Just this. We watched a memorial online. We were wrong. About you. About him. We won't ask for anything. But if Lily ever wants to know us again, we'll wait. I didn't cry. Not this time. I showed it to Lily. She read it, then looked up. Can we think about it? I nodded. Because healing isn't about yes or no, it's about maybe. Later, we remembered him without begging anyone to care. And somehow, that made him feel closer than ever before. 2 weeks after the letter, I met them at a cafe. Neutral ground. Middle of the day. Lily stayed with Marcus. They were already sitting. No tears. No muffins. No guilt performance. Just quiet eyes and shaky hands. Mom spoke first. I don't expect anything. Then Dad. We just want to know how to do better. If we still can. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. We talked. About what they did. About what they didn't do. About how some things don't get undone, but they can be faced. I told them this wasn't a reunion. This was a reckoning. I told them Lily was watching. Always. And whatever they wanted to be grandparents. Humans. History would be defined by what they did next. They nodded, not in agreement, in understanding. A few weeks later, Lily agreed to meet them. Once. In public. Short. They brought a book. They didn't cry. They didn't beg. They just listened as she told a story about school and showed them a picture she drew. When we left, she said, maybe they needed to lose us to remember how to see us. And I realized maybe forgiveness isn't about letting people in. Maybe it's about letting yourself go on without dragging them behind you anymore. They might never be the people we needed them to be, but we didn't need them to be whole. We already were. They didn't earn their place back, but they learned what it costs to lose it. And sometimes that's enough.